Idiot champagne. What are you doing, Paul?
The panda cub fell into the river. Just like that, its fate hanging in the balance. As a national first-class protected animal, how did it end up in such a dire situation? Our story begins half an hour earlier. It was a beautiful sunny day. A mother panda was playing in the mountains with her twin cubs. The family was having the time of their lives. Little did they know this heartwarming scene was being watched by a hunter named Lao Chen. Instead of approaching them, he placed a call to the city. Before long, a stranger arrived at his house, claiming to be a scientist. He said he wanted to take a panda cub back for research. To ease Lao Chen's conscience, Lao Feng claimed that a mother panda couldn't raise two cubs at once. She would eventually abandon one, leaving it to fend for itself. Taking one away, he argued, was actually a way to ensure the cub's survival. He then handed Lao Chen half of the down payment. The balance would be paid in full once the cub was captured. The next day, Lao Chen led Lao Feng to the panda's play area. Just then, one of the cubs, distracted by a bird, snuck away while its mother wasn't looking to give chase. It followed the bird all the way to a frozen lake, nearly falling in. As it played a game of cat and mouse with the bird on the ice, it had no idea it was already in the hunter's crosshairs. By the time the mother realized what was happening, it was too late. The cub had already wandered out of her sight. Meanwhile, Lao Feng was already closing in with his hunting dog. The mother panda let out a desperate call, signaling for her cub to return. Hearing the signal, the cub turned and raced back as fast as it could, but it was a moment too late. The hunting dog had already blocked its path home. With no other choice, the cub turned and fled in the opposite direction. The mother panda was frantic with worry, desperate to save her baby, but was stopped by Lao Chen, left with no choice but to watch her cub disappear. To shake off the hounds, the cub could only run forward with all its might, but as it fled, it suddenly found itself at the edge of a cliff, with hounds chasing from behind and a bottomless abyss ahead. To avoid being caught by the humans, the cub had no choice but to climb a dead tree on the cliffside. This broke Lao Feng out in a cold sweat. The cub had already reached the very top, but because of its weight, the dead tree gave way. With a loud crack, the branch snapped.
What are you doing? No.
Fortunately, as a national first-class protected animal with its own plot armor, the little panda miraculously survived. Weakly, it crawled out of the water onto the rocks, but it didn't stop to rest. It pushed on, desperate to evade its human pursuers. Meanwhile, the mother panda reached the cliff's edge. Finding no trace of her cub's scent, she let out a heartbroken wail. Little panda tried to climb a tree to hide from the hunters, but being so small, it couldn't manage the climb. Already quite chubby, and having never run for its life like this before, its strength was completely exhausted. It tried to find something to eat to regain its energy, but the dry twigs were impossible to swallow. Dazed and disoriented, it stumbled through the woods, accidentally trespassing into the monkey's territory. Seeing the stranger, the monkeys shrieked in unison to block its path. Even for a national first-class protected animal, they showed no mercy and chased the little panda away. Terrified, the cub's cries sounded almost like those of a human baby. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared across the sky. Shivering in fear, the little panda curled up in the grass, not daring to make a sound. But the hounds had already caught up to survive. The panda cub was forced to flee once more. Luckily, a heavy rain began to fall, masking the cub's scent from the dogs. They had no choice but to head back and resume the search tomorrow. But the cub was in a dire situation as the downpour blurred its vision. It lost its footing and tumbled down the mountainside. It lay motionless on the ground, its fate unknown to all. Meanwhile, back at home, Lao Feng grumbled incessantly, frustrated by the failed capture. While plotting the next day's hunt with Lao Chen, Xiao Lu, standing nearby, overheard every word of their conversation. Xiao Lu had been taken in by the hunter Lao Chen 2 years ago. A tragic fire had claimed the lives of his parents Xiao, leaving him an orphan and causing him to retreat into a shell. He closed himself off completely, never uttering another word, rejecting all forms of care and companionship. Pitying the boy, Lao Chen took him in, realizing he could use an extra pair of hands in the deep wilderness. Early the next morning, Xiao Lu went up the mountain with a basket to gather firewood. While lost in the melody of his flute, he stumbled upon the panda cub lying before him. He rushed over and touched the cub gently, finding that it was still breathing. Determined to keep it a secret, Xiao Lu struggled to carry the cub to a corner and hid it under his basket. He carefully concealed it with leaves, and once finished, he hurried back home. Unexpectedly, the moment he arrived, the hounds began barking at him furiously. They had caught the scent of the panda cub on his clothes. Xiao Lu grew intensely nervous as the two dogs continued their relentless barking. Fortunately, his silence was his shield. The two questioned him for a long time without getting any answers, so they gave up and went to search for the panda cub. Once they left, Xiao rushed back to the room and took out his bedding. He had to take a shortcut back to the panda cub immediately. If the hounds found it, everything would be over. Before long, Xiao Lu made it back to the cub's side. Seeing the panda cub safe and sound, Xiao Lu finally felt relieved. Suddenly, the barking of hunting dogs echoed from the distance. Without a second thought, Xiao Lu quickly used the mattress to wrap the cub up and carried it down the mountain on his back. He arrived at a dilapidated house. This was Xiao Lu's old home, abandoned after it was destroyed by fire. Xiao Lu quickly let the cub out and covered it with the mattress. Seeing the panda cub shivering from the cold, Xiao Lu hurriedly unbuttoned his coat to warm the cub with his own body heat. As he gazed at the little panda, the boy who hadn't spoken for years actually found his voice. Though he stammered, tried his best to tell the panda cub that he had no friends. He hoped the cub could be his friend. Xiao Lu also promised to protect it and keep it hidden from everyone. Once the cub's body warmed up, Xiao Lu finally felt at ease and went home in the middle of the night. Still worried about the cub, Xiao Lu quietly slipped back to the old house. Just then, the panda cub woke up.
You're awake? That's great. Are you thirsty? Do you want some water?
Several days had passed, and this was the panda cub's first drink of water. And like a mother, Xiao Lu sang a song to soothe the cub to sleep. Only after it fell fast asleep did Xiao Lu return home to rest. Early the next morning, as Xiao Lu set out to find the panda cub, he was spotted by the dog again. He knew that if this continued, he would eventually be caught. So he had an idea. He took the scented mattress to the river to wash it. Sure enough, the trick worked. The hound lost the trail once it reached the river. Lao Chen told Lao Feng that the panda cub might have already been eaten by wild animals. After all, in these deep remote forests, even an adult could fall prey to predators, let alone a panda cub that hasn't been weaned. Lao Chen urged him to give up the search and return to the city. This left Lao Feng feeling extremely resentful. Hearing their conversation from his hiding spot, Xiao Lu finally cracked a smile, then gathered some fresh bamboo leaves to feed the panda cub. But to Xiao Lu's surprise, it refused to eat. Don't pandas live on bamboo leaves? Xiao Lu was quite puzzled by this. Left with no choice, he hurried back home and boiled 2 sweet potatoes, but the cub still wouldn't eat. He went back to boil some potatoes, yet the panda cub still refused. This made Xiao Lu incredibly anxious. It would starve to death if it didn't eat. Soon out of options, Xiao Lu ran home once more and prepared some porridge for the cub. When he placed the bowl of porridge before the cub, it looked on with total disdain. As expected of a national first-class protected animal, it really didn't appreciate his efforts at all. The food it rejected could have lasted Xiao Lu for several days. As the boy and the panda were at a standstill, Xiao Lu suddenly recalled something Lao Chen had said. This panda hasn't been weaned yet. So he headed into the mountains to get some milk from a cow that had just given birth. Upon hearing he wanted milk, the mother cow ran off with her calf, never looking back. Fortunately, he finally got some milk, but to his surprise, the panda cub still refused to eat, leaving Xiao Lu completely stumped. He had no idea what it really wanted to eat. Just as he was at his wit's end, Xiao Lu had a bright idea. He thought of another way. He found a stone slab, laid bamboo leaves on it, and crushed them with a stone. He found a cracked bowl and mixed the crushed leaves with the milk. This time, the panda cub actually began to eat. Xiao Lu was overjoyed, it must be said. A national first-class protected animal is truly hard to please. Under Xiao Lu's meticulous care, the panda cub's health improved significantly. Whenever he had time, Xiao Lu would play with the little panda. These were the happiest moments for Xiao Lu In years, the panda cub's presence awakened Xiaolu's long-suppressed emotions. A bond of trust and friendship quickly formed between the boy and the animal. Xiaolu even gave it a name, Pang Pang. One day, while Xiaolu was cutting bamboo on the mountain, he spotted the mother panda, searching everywhere for her cub. Xiaolu knew in his heart how agonizing it is for a mother to lose her child, so he decided to return Pang Pang to his mother. Yet, despite his extreme reluctance, he knew that only by sending him back could he truly ensure Pang Pang's safety. That evening, when Lao Chen returned home, he found Xiaolu wasn't in bed, fearing something was wrong. He went to the hut to check, and found Xiaolu was indeed there, with the very panda cub they had been searching for right beside him. Lao Chen was about to go back and inform Lao Feng to take the cub away, but witnessing this heartwarming scene, Lao Chen decided to keep silent, would hide the truth and let Lao Feng return to the city empty-handed. But plans can never keep up with the pace of change. When Lao Chen got home, Lao Feng handed him the final payment. Though he didn't catch the cub this time, you've worked hard these past few days. Lao Chen stared at the money, tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep. Ultimately, he couldn't help himself and told Lao Feng where the panda cub was. Early the next morning, the two arrived at Xiaolu's house with an iron cage and promptly locked Pang Pang inside. Xiaolu wanted to intervene, but he was powerless to stop them. After all, he was facing two grown men, so he could only follow behind them in sullen silence. Despite capturing Pang Pang, they had no idea how to feed him. With a week-long journey ahead, if the cub refused to eat or drink, he would surely starve to death on the way. In desperation, Lao Feng had to seek help from Xiaolu. He knew Xiaolu could get Pang Pang to eat, but despite his questioning, Xiaolu didn't utter a single word, which infuriated Lao Feng to no end. Lao Chen exchanged a look with Xiaolu and knew exactly what the boy was thinking, so he deliberately called Lao Feng into the house. Once they were inside, Xiaolu secretly fed Pang Pang, knowing the cub was starving. That evening, Lao Chen brought out a bottle of wine he had saved for years to celebrate Lao Feng finally getting his wish of capturing the panda cub. In reality, Lao Chen wanted to get him drunk, so Xiaolu could escape with Pang Pang. Under the influence of the alcohol, Lao Feng soon fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, Xiaolu unlocked the cage and let Pang Pang out. Lao Chen saw everything, but he didn't wake Lao Feng. Instead, he continued to feign sleep. As Xiaolu reached the door, a dog spotted him and began to bark incessantly. Fortunately, Lao Feng was dead to the world and didn't wake up, and so with Pang Pang on his back, Xiaolu set off. They rushed toward the other side overnight, for Pang Pang's mother was waiting there. Once they crossed the river, Pang Pang would be safe. Waking up the next morning, Lao Feng found the iron cage wide open. He quickly grabbed his hound and gave chase. By now, Xiaolu was exhausted and desperately needed a rest. He suddenly heard the baying of the hounds. To buy more time for Pang Pang, Xiaolu left his scent-filled mattress at a fork in the path, then continued forward with the cub on his back. When the hounds reached the mattress, Lao Feng realized he'd been tricked, but it was too late. Xiaolu and Pang Pang had already reached the riverbank. Pang Pang would be safe as soon as they reached the other side, but no matter how Xiaolu pleaded, Pang Pang refused to step into the water. With no other choice, Xiaolu carried him across in his arms. The boy was lighter than the cub. It was a grueling struggle for Xiaolu.
Grunts. Grunts. Fen. Sighs. Sighs. Pain. Grunts. Winged grunts.
By then, Xiaolu was completely spent. Pang Pang would have to walk the rest of the way alone. Saying that Pang Pang wouldn't leave, Xiaolu had to throw stones to drive him away. Hearing his mother's call and glancing back at Xiaolu one last time, Pang Pang finally headed toward her. Oh, nee.
Please, don't forget me. Soft cry. Soft cry. Sigh.
At that moment, Xiaolu realized that true love means letting go. Lao Feng decided to give up the chase, Xiaolu was right to send him back in secret. He belonged with his mother. Only she could give him the life he deserved. After all their hardships, Pang Pang's family was finally reunited. Lu eventually went on to finish his education. His greatest wish was to dedicate his life to protecting pandas. In the early 1980s, the first panda center was established in Wolong, right in the heart of wild panda territory. For centuries, panda habitats have faced severe destruction due to human activity, pushing the species to the very brink of extinction. The Wolong Nature Reserve has shouldered the vital mission of protecting the giant panda, a place so remote even the clouds are unaware.